In 1967, during an episode of Batman and Robin, there was a moment of television history, and I do mean a moment because if you blinked, you would have missed it, where Bruce Lee as Kato kicked Robin across the room. And this was one of the only times, if not the first time, that a global majority character was portrayed as getting the upper hand against a white opponent in a fight. Now, do you know which demographic in the United States was the most inspired, the most excited, saw the most hope for representation in that moment of television, who couldn't wait to get to the playground every afternoon to reenact that scene with friends, and everybody wanted to play Kato? It was Black American boys. And if you want to talk about erasure in your own setting, in that moment of television, Black Americans could have responded with outrage. They could have thought, what the heck? We've been here for centuries. We built this nation for free, and now because of civil rights that we fought for, an Asian dude gets to come from Hong Kong and take that moment of representation and glory from us? Screw Asians. And maybe some people did feel that way, but collectively they didn't. Collectively they saw that moment on television and thought, that is so cool. And if we've shaped a society that is ready to allow an Asian person to do that on television, supporting that means that our turn will come sooner. And they loved and supported Bruce Lee in Asian martial arts, and Bruce Lee loved and supported them back because a rising tide lifts all ships. Now, I think it is completely fair that Asian men want the protagonist of an Assassin's Creed set in feudal Japan to be an Asian samurai, and because that's not what happened, resentment is understandable. And I think that everybody, regardless of gender and regardless of race, should be advocating for more positive representation of Asian men in Western media, because that is severely lacking. But if the issue is simply that people want to play an Asian samurai as the protagonist in a video game, there is no shortage of opportunities, and as far as I can tell, that has not done much to help the positive portrayal of Asian men in Western media, because it tends to promote the very flat and problematic stereotype of Asian men as honorable, loyal, stoic, but romantically unavailable warriors. So it's not just enough to want more Asian men as protagonists in video games. We all have to advocate to make sure that when that happens, it's done right. I'm only cautiously optimistic about the next Assassin's Creed because while I think that Yasuke's story is so cool, in the execution of the video game, I am worried that there is a lot of room for representation of Black men, Asian women, and Asian men to go sideways. But something that I've learned reading through the comments in the past few days is that Black people not only love Yasuke's story because he was a Black samurai, but they respect what it says about Nobunaga, an Asian man. That when the rest of the world only saw Yasuke as a Black slave, Nobunaga saw him as a warrior and a friend. And so that this controversy has brought that moment in history to more people's attention, I think is a win-win for Black and Asian representation and solidarity. Now, to your point, and to bring this full circle, the purpose of my original video was to say either have a problem with all of the above or none of the above. But if a person only has a problem when it is a Black main character, but not when it's a white main character, that's co-opting concerns about Asian representation to passive-aggressively promote anti-Blackness. And the reason why we cannot afford to allow that is because it muddies the waters in the very legitimate concern about the erasure and lack of representation of Asian men in Western media. Because let's not pretend that most of the people who are outraged about Yasuke being in Assassin's Creed are also anti-Asian. They're just pretending not to be in this moment so that they can use Asians as a buffer to attack Black people. That's the same strategy that was used to attack affirmative action. This is a facet of the same strategy that is being used to attack DEI, and this is how racial triangulation of Asian Americans against Black Americans in the United States works.